To Venezuela, where the death toll from the twin earthquakes that struck 2 weeks ago has risen to almost 4,000. As victims are still being recovered, the UN has said the disaster would have been incredibly difficult for any government in the world to manage.
Stephanie Landiz's family lies under a pile of rubble. The earthquake in Venezuela's Guaira state, where they lived, collapsed her apartment building to the ground.
My mind is blank. I couldn't tell you how I feel or what I think. My mission is to get them out of the rubble so they can be granted eternal peace.
Rescuers have recovered the bodies of her brother and her son. They're still looking for her mom's and her daughter's remains. Elsewhere in La Guaira, rescuers are still retrieving bodies buried in the massive quakes more than 2 weeks ago.
I lived here. I wasn't here the day of the earthquake. And it wasn't until today that I could recover my daughter and my mother. I was able to get their bodies out with the help of people who were right here, from neighbors, because there's no help from anyone else.
The twin earthquakes with magnitudes of 7.2 and 7.5 upended the lives of hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans. Survivors are still in desperate need of humanitarian aid. The UN, assisted by several countries, are helping provide crucial support while people grieve the loss of their loved ones and their homes.
La Guaira state, where the earthquakes hit, just outside the capital of the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, which is where we find our correspondent, Johan Ramirez. Welcome, Johan. What have you been seeing?
A lot of destruction. In the state of La Guaira, some places are completely devastated. There are some streets where no one single building stays in place. Everything has collapsed. In other places, there are still buildings in place, but very, very damaged, and a lot of suffering. People still looking 2 weeks after the earthquake, looking still for their loved ones under the debris. What you see behind me is one of the buildings in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, who collapsed a couple of weeks ago, and you see still works removing the debris and trying still to find some bodies. There is no official numbers of missing people, but according to the civil society, let's say, there are more than 30,000. Some other give a number of 40,000. United Nations says 50,000. I mean, the number is not precise, but the suffering is clear. There are a lot of people in the state of La Guaira looking for the loved ones. And the scenes we have seen the last 10 days working on the ground are really heartbreaking.
The Venezuelan government has been criticised for doing too little. Tell us more about those criticisms and the government's response.
I've been talking with many rescuers from Mexico, Argentina, Turkey, Qatar. All of them coincide with the fact that they could arrive 2, 3, 4 days later than expected, that they were ready to arrive immediately after the earthquake, but because of bureaucracy and other things, they arrived here 3, 4 days later. I was talking with colleagues, journalists, who were working on the ground since the very beginning of this tragedy. I mean, the earthquake took place on Wednesday evening, 24th, and they arrived on Thursday, 6 a.m., and they told me that they hear people screaming under the debris, screaming from the ruins, asking, begging for help, and no one was there. They tell me that they were there since Thursday, and they saw the first rescuer arriving on Sunday, and it means life or death for thousands of people.
The United States kidnapped Venezuela's president 7 months ago and installed his deputy in that place. Has this increased the US interest in the country? Has that been matched by an increased US disaster response?
Of course it matched. It would be naive to think that the United States don't have a huge interest on this catastrophe to be solved as soon as possible, and the areas in La Guaira state could be reconstructed. But we have to say also that the United States were one of the countries that first responded, sending help, people, rescuers, and money to help the victims of this earthquake.
And what's being said about reconstruction?
The national government has announced a big plan of a major housing construction project in La Guaira, also in Caracas and other places, with millions and millions of dollars, a huge budget. How much money? They haven't said it so far. How, in which terms, when, where? All of those questions are open, and the government hasn't had precise answers. They have just announced this big plan, but real politics to solve the problems of the victims, we are still waiting for those answers.
Okay, Johan, thank you for that. Johan Ramirez in Caracas.
We can now speak to Aisha Majid. She's a media manager at Save the Children and joins us from Caracas. Aisha, welcome to the day. We just heard stories of incredible hardship, and that's just a small glimpse of the situation in Venezuela. And I'd like to start with a personal question here. What has been the most difficult part of your work in the aftermath of the earthquake?
Well, for me, at Save the Children, we're working with children. So one of the most difficult parts for me personally, of course, it's talking to children. Every day I'm hearing stories of how children have been impacted by the earthquake. They're telling me things such as they feel scared when they see cracks in the ground. They feel the earth is going to open up again. I'm hearing stories of children who are afraid to sleep at night. Other children who don't have enough water to drink. I think it's incredibly heartbreaking and difficult to hear those stories.
Yeah. Describe to us what daily life is like now for the people in the most affected areas.
Well, there are thousands of people still displaced from their homes. I mean, around 17,000 people lost their homes. So there are people sleeping in the streets. There are people camped out by the beach in La Guaira, which was one of the areas most affected, where I've been with our teams today. There are people sleeping in the outdoors, exposed to the elements. It's pretty hot in the day here. It's also raining because it's the rainy season. So there are some people, for example, who are telling me that at night their mattresses get wet. It's difficult for them to dry them in the day. There's a lot of uncertainty. People are just not sure what's going to come next. We're seeing children with health needs as well, children with respiratory infections. The situation on the ground really is dire.
What are the main challenges you and your team of 8 workers are facing?
I mean, in any disaster like this, of this scale, it's incredibly complex. And these twin earthquakes were devastating. So there are huge needs on the ground. And one of the challenges in any disaster like this is obviously coordination. There are a lot of actors working on the ground, and it's incredibly needed, but incredibly complex as well to coordinate. I mean, us as Save the Children, we are coordinating with the UN, with the local authorities, with other actors, but it's never simple to coordinate the efforts on the ground. But it's incredibly needed, and we are doing it. But it's incredibly important to ensure that the aid gets to those families and children who need it the most.
Yeah. Your organization's main focus is, of course, children. Many of them have lost everything. How can a young person bounce back from such a life-altering event?
Yeah, we're hearing really heartbreaking stories from children who have they've lost their family members, they've lost their friends, they've lost their homes, they've lost their possessions. A lot of them are saying they just, they want to find their friends, they want to find their family members. There's a lot of uncertainty for them. So in a situation like this, it's absolutely vital that these children and these families receive mental health support, psychological support as quickly as possible, because in a disaster like this, it really is important that children are supported as quickly as possible to ensure that they have the best chance to recover from the distress and the trauma that they are living through.
Yeah, that's one side of it. Is there anything you can do to restore a sense of normalcy to the children living through, a truly extraordinary tragedy?
Yes, I mean, one of the things that that we're doing as Save the Children, and this week, and I've been out in our safe spaces. So these are spaces that we run where children can come, and we're running these in areas where children are living outside. So it's just a place where children can come. They can play. They can learn, do some informal learning. They can play games. They can kick a ball. They can talk to. We have counselors and psychologists at these sites as well. But it's just a place where they can go for a few hours just to feel like children again, which is so important. I mean, I was with children. They were coloring, drawing, singing, playing games like any child. But it is so important that children have these kind of safe spaces to go to.
Absolutely. If there's one thing you wish people outside of Venezuela knew about what's going on in the country, what would that be?
Well, I think right now we're seeing the phase where the needs are very urgent and very acute. There's a need, of course, there's so many: shelter, health, food, mental health support. But what I would say is that recovering from a disaster of this scale doesn't happen overnight. And what we need emergency and urgent aid right now, but the people of Venezuela are also going to need support very much for the medium and the long term as well, to ensure that this disaster does not make the situation for children and families worse and deepen the crisis that was already in the country.
Aisha Majid of Save the Children, thank you so much for your time. Great speaking to you today.
Thank you.